There are machines that fade away without anyone noticing. And then there are decisions that remain invisible for years, only to reveal their meaning long after the noise has stopped. Some exits look like failure from the outside. But in rare cases, leaving is not weakness, it is awareness. When Ford stepped away from heavy-duty trucks, many assumed the company had simply lost interest, or worse, lost its edge. After all, this was a brand whose trucks once thundered across America's highways, hauling steel, grain, timber, and fuel with unwavering reliability. Yet Ford walked away while its name still carried respect. That alone should have raised questions. The truth is that Ford did not leave because it could no longer build great trucks. It left because it understood what the industry was becoming before most others did. Years after Ford's departure, a quiet disaster unfolded across the American trucking landscape. Engines that were supposed to represent the future failed early and often. Fleets lost confidence. Repair shops filled faster than supply chains could respond. Lawsuits followed. Billions of dollars vanished, not through lack of effort or talent, but through a single misjudgment made under regulatory pressure. Ford was not there to experience it, not because it was lucky, but because it had already chosen a different path. Heavy-duty trucking has always looked straightforward from the outside. Big engines, thick frames, long hoods, and endless miles. But behind that simplicity lies one of the most unforgiving business environments in manufacturing. Margins are thin. Development cycles stretch across decades. Regulations evolve faster than steel can be reshaped. And a single technical decision can define or destroy a company for a generation. Ford learned that lesson early, not through its own collapse, but by watching others. Decades earlier, there had been a company called White Motor Company. Once celebrated, once confident, once powerful enough to believe it could absorb the entire industry around it. White expanded aggressively, acquiring brands, factories, and product lines across the country. On paper, it looked unstoppable. Revenue climbed. Market presence grew. But beneath the surface, complexity multiplied. Different engines, different parts, different engineering cultures. Debt rose quietly while confidence remained loud. When oil prices surged and interest rates climbed into dangerous territory, White collapsed under its own weight. Not because it lacked engineering capability, but because it stayed in a market that demanded absolute precision at all times. Ford did not forget that collapse. By the time Ford's own heavy-duty trucks had reached maturity, the company was already looking at the industry through a different lens. It saw that building an excellent truck was no longer the most difficult part. Surviving regulation, financing development, and supporting a massive aftermarket ecosystem had become the true challenge. Meanwhile, another world was quietly growing inside Ford's own portfolio. Pickup trucks were transforming from work tools into lifestyle vehicles. SUVs were becoming family staples. Passenger cars were selling in numbers heavy-duty trucks could never match. With the same investment, Ford could achieve faster returns, lower risk, and far greater control. For a corporation of Ford's size, this was not an emotional decision, it was arithmetic. So Ford did something rare. It stepped away without waiting for crisis. It did not sell the division in desperation. It did not dilute the brand by clinging to declining relevance. It simply ended production while its reputation was still intact. The Louisville trucks did not disappear in scandal. They disappeared in silence, and then the world changed. As emissions regulations tightened dramatically in the late 2000s, the entire trucking industry faced a choice: adapt through complex exhaust treatment systems, or attempt to solve the problem internally through engine design alone. One path added weight and cost but preserved mechanical balance. The other promised simplicity but demanded extreme operating conditions. One manufacturer chose the latter. What followed was not gradual failure, but immediate strain. Engines ran hotter than they ever had before. Components cracked, oil broke down, turbochargers failed. Fleets lost confidence almost overnight. Warranty systems collapsed under volume. Lawsuits followed. Billions were spent not on innovation, but on damage control. Reputation, the hardest asset to build, vanished faster than any balance sheet could record. Ford watched all of this from a distance, because Ford had already accepted a truth that others had not. In heavy-duty trucking, the cost of being wrong is absolute. There are no partial failures. Either the system works, or the entire operation bleeds. By leaving when it did, Ford avoided a gamble it did not need to take. It preserved capital, it preserved reputation, and most importantly, it preserved focus. Instead of fighting emissions battles and regulatory wars, Ford returned to what it understood best: high-volume vehicles, faster development cycles, products deeply embedded in everyday American life. The result speaks quietly, but clearly. The F-Series became not just the best-selling vehicle line in the United States, but one of the most reliable profit engines in automotive history. No sleeper cabs, no long-haul dominance, just consistency, scale, and control. History often celebrates those who stay until the end. But business, history belongs to those who know when staying becomes dangerous. Ford did not lose the heavy-duty truck market. It chose not to be consumed by it. The Louisville Line did not end in defeat. It ended at the only moment when ending still meant dignity. If you remember the sound of those engines, the smell of diesel on long highways, and the era when trucks were built to last decades, then this story belongs to you. Press like if these memories still matter. Subscribe if you want to keep these machines alive in history. And leave a comment below. Which classic truck still lives in your memory? Because some decisions are loud, and others, like this one, change everything in silence.